It was a crisp autumn night, and I found myself with a spontaneous urge to explore the allure of the wilderness under the silvery moonlight. My friends had warned me about the eerie reputation of these woods after sunset, but I was an adventurer at heart and shrugged off their cautionary tales. Armed with a flashlight and a sense of invincibility, I ventured into the heart of the forest alone. The woods were dense, and the trees seemed to loom over me like menacing giants. The rustling leaves and hooting owls provided a haunting symphony that accompanied my every step. Despite the chill in the air, I pressed on, drawn by an inexplicable force deeper into the woods. As I continued, the path grew less defined, and soon I found myself in the midst of an unfamiliar territory. My heart pounded in my chest, and a sudden wave of unease washed over me. I considered turning back, but an inexplicable curiosity urged me forward. In the distance, a faint light flickered, beckoning me to follow. My instincts warned against it, but I couldn't resist the allure of the mysterious glow. With each step, the light seemed to grow brighter, illuminating the path before me. It was as if the forest itself was guiding me towards some unknown destination. The woods became eerily silent, as though nature itself was holding its breath. A voice in my mind urged me to flee, but my body refused to obey. The light drew me in, and I soon found myself in a small clearing. In the center of the clearing stood an ancient, gnarled tree, its twisted branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The light emanated from a peculiar-looking lantern hanging from one of its branches. Its flames danced wildly, casting eerie shadows that seemed to come alive. A chill ran down my spine, and I felt an unsettling presence lurking in the shadows. Despite my fear, I couldn't tear my eyes away from the lantern. It seemed to call out to me, inviting me to embrace its dark secrets. "Who's there?" I called out into the darkness, hoping to dispel the feeling of isolation. Silence greeted me, and my pulse quickened. A soft whisper echoed through the trees, so faint that it could have been a figment of my imagination. But as I strained to listen, the whispers grew louder, mocking and taunting. Panic began to set in, and I turned to leave, but the path I had taken was no longer there. The once clear trail was now a labyrinth of shadows and confusion. Panic gnawed at my resolve, and I stumbled aimlessly through the woods searching for an escape. In my desperation, I noticed peculiar symbols etched into the trees, glowing with an otherworldly light. They seemed to form a twisted pattern, guiding me deeper into the woods. With no other option, I followed the markings, hoping they would lead me back to safety. The whispers intensified, and I felt as though the woods were closing in on me. My breaths became ragged, and sweat trickled down my forehead. As I turned a corner, I gasped at the sight before me. A circle of hooded figures stood in the center of the clearing, surrounding a dark, foreboding altar. Their eyes glowed with malevolence, and a shiver ran down my spine. I knew I had stumbled upon something far more sinister than I could have ever imagined. Frozen in fear, I watched as they began chanting in a language unknown to me. The ground beneath my feet seemed to tremble with each uttered syllable. The forest around us came alive, and the trees swayed as if they too were caught in the hypnotic cadence of the chant. Suddenly, the hooded figures turned their gaze toward me, and I knew I had been spotted. Panic surged through me, and I tried to flee, but my body refused to move. It was as if an invisible force held me in place, a prisoner to their dark ritual. The leader of the group stepped forward, a sinister grin etched on his face. He spoke, his voice chilling to the bone. "Welcome, traveler. You have stumbled upon our sacred gathering, and now you shall become a part of it." My heart pounded in my chest, and I pleaded for my release. But my words were drowned out by the relentless chanting. Their voices grew louder and more powerful, and the very ground trembled beneath my feet. In an instant, the lantern hanging from the twisted tree ignited with an ethereal flame. Shadows danced across the clearing, and an overwhelming sense of dread washed over me. I was trapped in a nightmarish reality, and there was no escape. As the chanting reached its crescendo, a blinding light engulfed the clearing. I shielded my eyes, but the light seeped through, penetrating every fiber of my being. The world around me twisted and contorted, and I felt as though I was being torn apart. In that moment of absolute horror, I caught a glimpse of something in the corner of my eye, a figure cloaked in darkness watching the scene unfold. Its eyes burned with an intense fire, and a wicked smile played on its lips. Time seemed to stand still, and I found myself suspended in a void of terror and despair. I had trespassed into a realm beyond comprehension, and the consequences were beyond my grasp. When I awoke, I was back on the familiar hiking trail, the sun beginning to rise on the horizon. My body ached, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed within me. The horrors I had witnessed had left an indelible mark on my soul. To this day, I can't be sure if it was a nightmare or a twisted reality. The memory haunts me, and the whispers of the woods linger in the depths of my mind. I often find myself yearning for the tranquility of the forest, but fear holds me back, reminding me of the darkness that lurks within the shadows. If you ever find yourself tempted to explore the woods at night, remember my cautionary tale. For in the heart of those whispering woods, malevolent forces lie in wait, eager to ensnare unwary travelers in their web of horror and despair.